Hey guys, this is Eric with Mediavine, and this is our Go For Teal video series. Today I want to talk to you about the in-content ad settings. So ever since we switched to our new density-based or Coalition for Better Ads-based in-content logic, there's a lot more ad settings in the dashboard. We always want to give more power to the publishers, but obviously sometimes things can get a little overwhelming. So today I just want to kind of break down what the different ad settings are for in-content logic and where you should really set them if you want to kind of maximize revenue and the best user experience. So it's going to vary from site to site. So this is kind of an important one. We can't just set one in-content setting for everyone. So first off, as I mentioned before, we switched to a density-based in-content logic. So what the heck does that mean? So we use the standard set by the Coalition for Better Ads, and they basically found really the way to judge if ads are going to ruin a user experience is how many ads there are relative to the amount of content, or the density. So if you have a 30% density of ads, that means if you have content that is 1,000 pixels long, 30% of it can be ads and 70% would be content, and that would be considered okay by a user. So it's measured based on pixel height, because that's really how most computer screens are based. Okay, so let's say we use that number 30%. That's the maximum amount the Coalition for Better Ad standards allows on mobile. So that's basically where we allow you to set a maximum of at 30%. The default setting that we have here at Mediavine for mobile web is 28%. So where should you set that density for your site? So on mobile, we often encourage you to actually go a little more aggressive. Unfortunately, mobile ads don't earn as much as desktop, and the only ads that appear on your mobile site are going to be inside that in-content and the one adhesion and the recipe card ads. So really, you're going to have fewer ad places. So you have to go a little heavier on in-content. So we're going to recommend going a little bit higher. So that 28% or 30%, if you want to get a little more aggressive, are generally where we recommend you keep in-content settings for mobile. We understand that some sites that write extremely long content don't want that high of a density, but I'll cover that more with our limit feature next. So on desktop, we actually have a lot of other great performing ads. So on desktop, you're going to have sidebar ads. You're going to have the desktop adhesion, of course, the recipe, and potentially you could even run a leaderboard ad. So many other different ad positions, we don't tend to recommend you go as aggressive with in-content ads on desktop. So our default setting is a 20%. You can go higher or lower depending on what you feel looks best with your site. 20% is generally a pretty good number for most sites. We've seen some sites go a little bit lower, especially if you have like affiliate revenue and other sources of income. But generally that one you can kind of leave at default. So which settings should you be looking at? So coming up next, I want to talk about the minimum paragraph spacing. So we're going to do our best, again, to match based upon that density. If we say 30%, we'll fill up to 30% of your content area with ads. But you're now able to use what's called paragraph spacing to make sure there's a minimum buffer between those ads. Our default setting is going to be 2 paragraphs. And that paragraphs here can mean either images, it can mean a paragraph of text, it can mean something like a video. Really anything that's going to be a block element for the computer people out there is what we're going to count as a paragraph. So when you set the default setting of 2, that means no ads will appear unless there's been at least 2 paragraphs between them. Generally that setting is recommended, but you can go down to 1 if you tend to write longer paragraphs or have a lot more images, or you can go with 3 if you write really short sentences. So for example, on the Hollywood Gossip, we'll have lots of sentences that are maybe 8 to 10 words long. We go very short there. So going 3 on a site like that might be okay, and you might not even see a drop in RPM. So that one's really going to be based upon your sentence structure. But again, for most people, 2 will be both fine on mobile and on desktop. And then really the most interesting one is the limits that we added. So you're able to set a limit to the total number of ads you want to appear on a page. So that limit by default, we go a little bit higher than you might expect. It's 9 on desktop and 12 on mobile. The reason why those limits are set so high is because you have to remember most of the time people don't have long enough content to really end up with that many number of ads, larger than that. But if you do, we want to make sure we don't have an excessive number of ads. Ads kind of have diminishing returns. As you keep running more and more ads on a page, you're not going to get paid the same as you did. So ad number, let's say 14, wouldn't be worth as much as ad number 2. So really you have to put the cap somewhere. We at Mediavine do allow you to remove that cap, And that's certainly allowed and not a problem if you think about it. When you're on a Facebook scrolling through your feed, you don't run out of ads. We don't want you to have to run out of ads here at Mediavine if you have longer form content. It's completely up to you. Now, the coolest part about the limit is that if you set a limit and go with the highest density you can, the limit is automatically going to adjust that density on that content to make sure your ads are further spaced out. So really, if you have a upper limit in your head of what you think is an appropriate number of ads, let's say it's 9 on your site instead of the default of 12, you could still go with a higher density, but do a lower limit. And the system will automatically take care of that for you. And that's generally what we'd recommend. Do a limit before you decrease your density. And the reason why is because if you have a short post and you go with a low density, you're going to end up with not enough ads and you're going to have a lower RPM as a result. So do not lower your density unless all of your content is long. And for most people who have been blogging for a while, might have older content that isn't as long, so we don't recommend that. So again, think about changing your limits before you change your density, and your paragraph spacing only if you write very short sentences should you increase that. And of course, again, this will vary for all sites. If you're a site that makes most of your revenue, let's say from affiliate revenue, then maybe you're okay with running lower ad settings, and that's completely fine. But just make sure when you're comparing RPMs with fellow publishers, you're comparing people with similar ad settings. And then finally, there's one advanced rule in there I do want to cover, and that's it's called advanced settings. And you can basically choose only insert ads between paragraphs of text or after paragraphs of text or the default. So what the heck does that mean? By default, we'll show ads after a paragraph of anything, as I mentioned before, whether it's an image, whether it's a video, or whether it's a block of text. You have the option to say to only insert ads after a block of text. The reason we offer that is because a lot of people don't like the way it visually looks if you run an ad right after an image, or if you run things like in-image ads. So we give you that ability that you can make sure you don't run ads directly after images. Strongly recommend you only run that setting if you have lots of smaller broken up paragraphs of text. So that one can have a negative impact on your RPM. But if you do have lots of small paragraph text because you've been listening to, let's say, these Go For Teal video series, then you're okay with running that one only after text paragraphs. We rarely recommend going with only between text paragraphs, but again, you can do that if you have a lot of text relative to images and you'll be fine. You might even find it's a better user experience because ads generally will look better between paragraphs of text than they will next to an image. So that's our in-content settings. I know I just covered a lot there. So if you have any questions, please ask in the comments or email in to publishers@mediavine.com. We can work with you on your ad settings. So thank you, and I will see you guys online next week.